My name's Nancy Feigley. I'm 27, and I learned two things at my sister's wedding. One, sparkling water still stings when you swallow it with embarrassment. And two, freedom sometimes shows up wearing a cocktail dress, with a tight smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. The country club outside Indianapolis had that unmistakable scent. Polished wood, soft carpet, a certainty that money could buy perfection. Kelsey looked like she had stepped straight out of a magazine that had never been folded. 3 open bars, a greenhouse-style photo booth, monogrammed napkins softer than they had any right to be. If you listened closely, you could almost hear wealth sigh. I sat at the family table. Mom's porcelain gaze, Dad's measured affection. A few in-laws were calling me as a quiet child. It's their polite way of saying, you used to take up less space. We've never been the hugging at the airport kind of family. We keep score, balance sheets in our heads, and occasionally on paper. When I needed a loan for my last semester, after grants, after 30 hours a week at a campus job, after convincing myself I could do it alone, Dad didn't hesitate. But it wasn't generosity. It was a contract. 10% interest, a 1-year term, failure to repay clause. Every page stamped with his silent approval, or his way of notarizing my possible failure. Meanwhile, Kelsey flunked her first year, came home without warning, totaled her car, and somehow had a shinier one by weekend. No contracts, just, we all make mistakes. And a cake that read, "Welcome home, bright girl." That's the rhythm of my family. Everyone knows it, no one says it. I hadn't told anyone yet that I was leaving Indiana. Not just leaving, but erasing. I had a folder on my laptop labeled event stuff, just in case anyone snooped. Inside, jot postings, a spreadsheet of cities far away, a budget labeled oxygen. I hadn't even told Lucas. We'd been together a year. The good kind of steady. The kind that feels like remembering a password you created when you were kind to yourself. That weekend, he was working 2 states away, sending me photos of undercooked motel chicken and asking if I'd eaten. His ex, Naomi, still lingered around the edges, civil, sugar bright, the type who remembers anniversaries that aren't hers. I always told myself she was background noise. Dinner was winding down when Dad stood, glass in hand, tapping a fork against the rim. The room hushed like someone had pulled a blanket over the entire table. He started sweet, the way they always do. Love is work. Proud of the bride. A home built on trust. He glanced at Kelsey and her new husband. He said, "Some kids make you proud. Others just take up space." The words landed like a sitcom punchline. Small clumps of laughter floated around the table. Even Kelsey giggled, the type of laugh you use to prove you're on the safe side of the line. Mom didn't blink. She never wastes the fine china of expression. Something clicked inside me. Not anger, not yet. More like a door long unused, finally choosing a hinge. I lifted my glass, held Dad's gaze the way you hold a box you're done carrying, and said, loud enough to slice the tablecloth, "Good thing I just got my own place 2,000 miles away. Don't worry, you'll never see me take up space again." Silence is honest. You could hear it breathe. Waiters coughed. The band leader pretended to retune a guitar. For a moment, I saw the mask slip on Dad's face. Then nothing. They let me stand. They let me leave. I walked out barefoot, heels in hand, because dignity is easier without shoes. The night smelled of grass and the kind of storm that waits just before it hits. At the hotel, the adrenaline faded, leaving only a sharp, careful calm. No tears, no mirror pep talks, just the arithmetic of someone done negotiating with a locked door. I opened the banking app Dad had insisted I download, sent the final payment from my tuition,
$3,362.18. Memo, as agreed. No reply. Of course not. In our house, silence isn't absence, it's leverage. The next morning, Kelsey posted a frosting-smeared selfie to the family chat. Best night ever. Mom replied with sparkles about perfect beginnings. They treated my words like a napkin dropped on the floor. Just step over it and keep dancing. My phone buzzed. Lucas, how's the fancy wedding? Eat real food. I sent a plate photo and a lie. It was fine. He texted a crooked selfie, bedhead and all. I'm proud of you, even on boring days. I wanted to tell him everything. The toast, the transfer, the surge of breathing space, but the words waited. I told myself I'd call later. 2 days later, Mom tried the concerned voice, the one that wraps a knife in gauze. Is everything okay, Nancy? Did something happen at the wedding? I told her work was busy. Nothing for her to grab. Then the familiar alibi. He didn't mean it like it sounded. He's old school about affection. We've always supported you in our way. Support. In our family, it's always stapled to a receipt. I hung up, opened the folder. Portland, Boulder, Flagstaff, Asheville, at least 1,000 miles away. I made columns. Cost of living, job market, weather, how far grief travels when it has to buy a plane ticket. Every passive-aggressive comment from Mom, $50 into the escape fund. Every jab from Dad, eyes glued to his phone, $100. I turned leaving into math, and numbers, unlike them, liked me back. On the surface, I did the normal daughter things, answered texts, showed up, laughed at stories that never happened. But in my head, I was already packing a suitcase labeled with a word I hadn't used in years. Mine. 6 weeks later, Kelsey left a voicemail. Small, careful sobs. Can we talk? She asked. We hadn't really since the toast. Her voice trembled with guilt, worry, and fear. She whispered, I can't afford the place alone. I don't want to hear the speeches. I can't be perfect and wrong at the same time. That stopped me. The golden child is not supposed to feel the weight of gold. I should have said no. Boundaries are cleaner on paper. But I recognized her voice. It was me, years ago, holding a loan contract as if it were a lifeline. I said quietly, I'll come. We packed in silence. Her apartment looked half erased. Wedding photos still sealed. Cabinets never knowing the shape of dishes. Sometimes love is quieter than a conversation. Subscribe for more stories like this.
We drove in silence, the car humming a steady tune over potholes and interstate hum. Kelsey fiddled with the GPS, pretending she knew where we were going. I didn't correct her. Control is a currency I had learned to save. When we reached her apartment, it looked smaller than I remembered. Not in a bad way, just honest. The gold frames and wedding mementos clung to the walls like guests who wouldn't leave. The scent of yesterday's coffee lingered, a faint bitterness that matched her mood. She sunk onto the couch. I didn't know who else to call, she admitted, voice soft, almost fragile. I've messed up, Nancy, I really have. I knelt beside her. Kelsey, listen, we all mess up. But this, I gestured to the apartment, the unopened bills, the evidence of trying and failing at adulthood. This is bigger than just a mistake. You need help. Her eyes welled up, and I saw the same look I'd worn when Dad handed me that loan agreement in college. That silent, anxious acceptance that someone else controlled your fate. Can we just pretend we're kids again? She whispered. I laughed softly. No, but we can pretend we're strong enough to fix this.
We spent the night sorting bills, packing away wedding remnants, and reaching out to distant relatives who owed us favors. And then her phone rang. I watched her flinch. Caller ID read, Mom. I held my hand up. Not now. Please, she said, voice trembling. I have to talk. I let her answer. Her words were cautious, polished, rehearsed. Nancy, I know you've been upset. We didn't mean to hurt you at the wedding. Can you forgive me? I leaned against the wall, silent. Forgiveness isn't automatic. It's a transaction of trust, and theirs was bankrupt. Kelsey whispered, What should I say? I shrugged. Say whatever keeps you safe. We're the adults now. By morning, things shifted. Kelsey felt lighter, finally admitting that her perfect image had been nothing more than a fragile mask. I felt lighter too. I wasn't just leaving Indiana anymore. I was carrying someone else's hope along with my own. Over the next few weeks, I found a small apartment in Portland, cozy, honest, and mine. Boxes lined the walls like soldiers in formation. I unpacked slowly, letting each item remind me, this space doesn't judge. It doesn't measure worth by attendance at a wedding or the balance of a checking account. Lucas came to visit a week later. He hugged me like he meant it, arms that promised patience, not critique. You're really doing it, he said, smiling at the chaotic boxes and half-empty shelves. I am, I replied, and I'm learning that freedom isn't just a word. It's everything you're willing to fight for. One evening, Kelsey called. She'd started a part-time job, paid for the apartment's first month herself, and even managed to donate some of her old wedding decorations. It's real. And it hurts, but it's mine now, she said. I smiled, realizing the truth. Freedom isn't about escaping people. It's about finding yourself between the cracks of expectation, learning how to breathe in the spaces they never noticed. Months later, Dad texted, short, controlled. Hope you're doing well. Take care. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to negotiate. The weight was gone, the contract void, and in its place, a quiet sense of victory. Small, private, and unshakable. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought on battlefields or boardrooms. They're fought in the quiet rooms of your own making, where courage is measured by the step you take alone. And when you finally step forward, you discover the truest form of wealth, peace. The camera could pull back from Nancy's small Portland apartment, the city lights flickering like silent applause. Somewhere between the past she left behind and the life she's building, she finally breathes. Subscribe for more real-life stories of courage, independence, and family secrets.